Hi, it's Hollowaster, and welcome to another part of Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous. So, we finally defended the Defender's Heart Tavern. It took a long time, because I was trying to brute force it, and it wasn't working, and I should have just been patient. So I was finally patient, an hour and a half later, and 4 tries later that we're not going to talk about how long those tries took. And now we're done. So, now we are back at the Defender's Heart Tavern. We can level up, which I'm probably going to do off camera after this part. So, what I want to do for this part is just catch up with everyone, talk to everyone. There's a lot of dialogue in this game that we haven't gotten to yet. So let's start with Sela because she's right here. Good days and clear skies. What do you say? What are we off to today? Or where are we off to today? Oh, actually, we did talk all the way to Sela, so never mind. But Lann, I don't think we cleared Lann's dialogue. What brings you here? Tell me about your people. Of course, what would you like to know? So we got a lot of options here. What's it like living in your caves? Weird way to phrase it. Oh, Lann gives you a broad smile. His smile is strange, as if it falters where his human features meet his animal ones. Imagine that in the entire world there's only a few hundred like you. There's not an inch of fertile ground anywhere, nowhere to grow grain for bread, or cotton and linen for cloth. Your neighbors are beasts who want to eat you, or parasites who want to infect you with their larvae and then eat you. And it's not that bad because you can try to eat most of the things that are trying to eat you, sometimes at the risk of getting poisoned, sometimes with almost no risk at all. In the worst years, there's not a single living thing anywhere to be found, predator or prey. That's when you eat mushroom soup. I'd say 3 times a day, but there was barely enough for once every 3 days. He shrugs. But life underground has its upsides, pun intended. There's no risk of losing the roof over your head, there's no bad weather, not counting on the earthquakes, of course. I think there's a risk of losing the roof over your head on account of that happened. But are you really the descendants of the first Crusaders? More like demon spawn, aren't we? Sad but true. Without the demons, there would be no mongrels. It's the magic of the world wound that affected our ancestors and made their children the way that we are. Like most in our tribe, Chief Sol fancies himself a descendant of the underground Crusaders, one of our heroic ancestors left to guard the caves. I don't know if it's true or not. That angel came to our caves for a reason. Maybe he remembered us. Those were evil and dangerous times after the First Crusade. Hundreds of crusaders began having children, and babies were born with bangs and horns and warts that covered half their face. People didn't like the new look. The Inquisitors sure didn't. So our ancestors fled persecution and made a home for themselves down there, under the ground. They probably intended to find a cure for their children and hoped to return in time, but it never happened. Instead, the Worldwound's terrible legacy was passed down from generation to generation. Mongrel parents can only guess what their child will look like. Each of us was born with a new mutation. Many mutations are fatal. He stops, then goes on quietly. Down in the caves, we usually don't congratulate the family for the birth of a child until they turn at least 3. Most don't even get a name before that. There's no point. That's rough. It hasn't been that long since the First Crusade. Why do you know so little about your ancestors? Our lives are much shorter than most uplanders. Up here, only a few generations passed, and many still remember old Sarkoris as it stood untouched by the demons. Queen Galfrey, for example. But where we live, mongrels start getting old much earlier than humans, much faster, and with more devastating consequence. Few live past 40, and fewer still live long enough to die of old age. Hunger, disease, and monsters from the deep are more effective killers than time. So for us, the story of the First Crusade is a legend that happened generations ago. There are no living witnesses. We have a tale of the wise and great ancestors who left us to stand guard in the catacombs, but in reality, I suspect they were desperate wretches who couldn't figure out how to dispel the demonic plague and who were abandoned by their own kind. Do you have a way to tell day and night? You can't see the sun in your caves. Yeah, I think they probably just know. Every mongrel settlement has a big gong, which we treat like a relic. The gong keeper hits it twice a day to mark the beginning and end, but this custom doesn't keep time very precisely. Every mongrel child has snuck up to the gong to strike it at the wrong time at least once, just out of pure mischief. Nothing could keep me away from it, not even the fact that I only have one ear, which means it would take double the punishment once I was caught. So sometimes the wrong strikes get mixed in with the right ones, and the tribe can find itself jumping up to greet the morning in the middle of the night. Do mongrels tribes fight each other? There were some skirmishes, and I've been forced to kill my kinfolk before, too. He speaks in a steady voice. Fights most often break out over food. We have laws in the caves, unwritten and written, that we follow. We respect one another's right to live, but hunger, it can push a person over the edge. I've never, you can count on that, stolen someone else's kill, but I can understand those of my kin who've tried. To hear your kids begging for food and not being able to feed them is terrifying. He frowns and goes silent. You're the only member of Neathholm tribe to call your people mongrels. Why is that? Because all of Galarian calls us that? I don't see the point in all this hemming and hawing over what we're called. Anyone who finds it offensive or takes issue with it can lead the charge against the name. No one's stopping them. But personally, I'm not going to pick a fight over something as unimportant as a name. Alright. We did a little more talking than I remembered, but there's still more people to talk to, especially Nenio. We definitely haven't talked to her yet. Let's get that out of the way, because she has a lot to say. Girl, I am pleased with you. I asked you to bring me to safety, and that's exactly what you did. Indeed, having a follower to aid me is most efficient and frankly pleasing. With you on hand, I shall conquer new horizons, plumb the depths of knowledge, hitherto unknown, and scale the dizzying heights of future discoveries. She stops to catch her breath. What I mean, is that I'd like to express my deepest gratitude. I foresee immense potential in our future cooperation. So, we're just going to say happy to help. Hand in hand, we will unravel the greatest mysteries inaccessible to the minds of ordinary people. Just imagine it, I leading the way, proudly staring into the faces of gods themselves, and you, my loyal follower, walking behind me every step of the way, writing down my deepest thoughts and admiring the profundity of my intellect. No. Girl, relax. So if we hold hands, you won't be able to go in front of me and lead the way, or do you always express your delight so effusively? I guess that one? What? Who are you? Nenio stares at you for a while, bewilderment in her eyes, but then it was replaced by recognition. Oh yes, my new follower. So what am I supposed to do? Oh yes, I must provide some verbal encouragement for you as yet modest achievements and try to induce you to strive for more such encouragement. That is the principle that underpins any training. She frowns, but only for an instant. Ah, I see. Your modest nature was unsettled by the overabundance of my gratitude. I do apologize for putting you in such an awkward position. I will never praise you again, unless I forget. But let's get back to the business at hand. Your new assignment will be to take me to the inconspicuous ruins that are located at an even more inconspicuous valley lying between Canabras and Dresden, as soon as it is reasonably practicable. I'll mark the place on your map with a large red cross so you won't forget it. So what's so special about these ruins? I'm glad you asked. This is my great hypothesis, my secret project, and I won't pass up the opportunity to share it with you. Because you are my loyal follower, and you are worthy of possessing such knowledge. She rubs her nose. And also because you are the first person to ever ask me about it. I wonder why. I'm shocked. Some time ago, I was walking around the border of the World Wound, and I met a strange person. He was wearing a frayed gray robe, and his face was hidden behind an odd white mask. Of course, I didn't miss the opportunity to ask about the reasons for his absurd appearance. And do you know what he said to me? He said, "I'm the answer, but what is the question?" And then he walked off in the direction of the World Wound. The next day, after I had already forgotten about the first encounter, I had another similar encounter. This time I met an elven woman, judging by the pointy ears sticking behind the mask. I am the answer, but what is the question?" she said before talking off toward the World Wound, and then I realized everything became clear to me. I know a mystery when I see one. Consider this one of my myriad talents. Nenio rubs the tip of her nose. After all, these geysers weren't simply on their way to a costume party, were they? After examining several maps, I determined that they were all heading in the same direction. To a place not far from Canabras, a place which is marked as nameless ruins, even on Sarkorian maps. That is where I need to go. Unraveling the secret of that place will be my greatest discovery. It will secure my place in history or perhaps in legend. Okay, girl. How do you know where we have to go? Do you know how to find a beehive in a forest? You need to catch 2 bees, set them free in 2 different locations of the forest, remember the directions they fly in, then take a map and draw lines showing the bees' route. Then where the place where the lines intersect will mark the location of the beehives. Fascinating, yes? By the way, forest bees do not make any honey, Nenio sighs. Couldn't you just follow the bee? Like one? I used the beehive principle here too. For a couple months, I tracked the strange people in the masks and observed the direction in which they were traveling. I collected the coordinates, mapped their estimated routes, and made a discovery. All the routes intersected at the nameless ruins not far from Canabras. And what do you expect to find there? I haven't the slightest idea. If I knew what was hidden, I wouldn't be so eager to go. So these ruins aren't very far from Canabra's. You could easily go by yourself. Why do you need me? Her eyes seem ready to pop out of their sockets in surprise. Don't you see? This is a legendary secret place. Nobody knows what may happen to me after I lift the veil and uncover the workings of the universe. My mortal body may be unable to contain all that knowledge, or perhaps I will ascend and become equal to the gods themselves. I need you to write everything down that happens and report my fate to the interested parties in Absalom. Don't forget to praise me as I deserve it while you're there. You know, these ruins of yours may turn out to be just that, ruins. She shrugs. In that case, I'll write this experiment off as a failure and start another one. I don't know which experiment I'll try next. Alright. Well, now you know. So off we go, Nenio frowns. Did I make a rhyme? Perhaps I've discovered a poetic talent in myself. Let's conduct an experiment quickly. Say any word and I'll try and find a rhyme for it right away. Iomade says, Discari, go away. If you play, you need to pay. Every shade the color gray. Not the best rhymes, don't you think? Well, this experiment was unsuccessful. We learned that I have no poetic talent after all. Nenio sighs. But it's no reason to despair. Having a gift of poetry in addition to my inexhaustible intelligence would have been a little too much. Besides, I am catastrophically busy and have no time to spend on writing poetry. She's a lot, obviously. I never take her with me anywhere, honestly. So I probably won't in this run as well. So I don't like it when you call me girl. My name is Fable. On the grand scale of world history, your name is irrelevant. I have no reason to remember it. Thanks. You see, the brain of any given individual can contain only a limited amount of facts. I only expend my memory on things that are truly important. The laws of thermodynamics, divine esoterica, planar geography, things that will lead Galarian to a brighter future. She rubs her nose. Besides, what if I make a great discovery but I won't be able to remember it because my memory is full of outdated or useless information? What a nightmare that would be. What a loss for the whole of Galarian. Okay. But you do remember your own name, right? Only so that I know what to put the author's name for my encyclopedia. Okay. Are there any names worth remembering? There are, and to my deepest regret, there are too many of them. She heaves a sigh that would befit a grief-stricken old man. The names of the gods and demigods, the names of rulers, conquerors, and other persons by some reason deemed great by the people of Galarian. They etch their names into history, and alas, every self-respecting educated person must know them. But there are some names I'm happy to remember. Great scientists, some of them divine, others mortal, true keepers of knowledge and great experimentalists. The pioneers of knowledge, Aurori, Nethys, Aurilu Vorlesh. So Aurilu, again, is the one who she was a human. Yeah, she was mortal at least. I guess I don't know if she was human. And she turned herself into a succubus and opened the world wound. So admiring Aurilu Vorlesh is going a bit far, don't you think? Oh, by no means. She's the greatest of the greatest. Just imagine, she managed to open a rift from Galarian to the Abyss. No one knew how, no one believed it possible, no one even dreamed of such a thing, and she just did it. It was the experiment of the century. She wipes a tear from her eye. I would have been so happy if I could have been in her place. Of course, some parts of Galarian's population died as a result of her experiment, and the Crusaders are still wrestling with the consequences to this day, but the very essence of what Aurilu managed to do was a breakthrough of cosmic significance, both figuratively and literally. Sooner or later, the world wound will be closed, peace will return to Galarian. As for the victims of the ongoing war, they will be remembered as an unfortunate but unavoidable sacrifice made at the altar of science. Fable is just blinking at her like, girl, you're insane. She blinks at you perplexed. Were we talking about something? Sure. I'd like to clarify a few things about your new task. Okay, I don't need to do that one, so tell me about yourself. I am an explorer, a pilgrim, a yet-to-be-recognized scientific luminary, future author of the Encyclopedia Galarianica, and rector of Absalom's universities at once. Future rector, I should say. She speaks in one breath as if reeling off a practice monologue. That information should be enough to satisfy your curiosity, because I doubt I'll be able to tell you more than that. Where are you from? That information is irrelevant. I've decided to forget it. How'd you become a scientist? That information is irrelevant. I've decided to forget it. You have a circle tattooed on your shoulder. What's it mean? She casts a sidelong glance at her shoulder. Oh, that. I do not remember the circumstances of its creation, but I like it. I prefer to think of it as a zero, null, nothing, a center point, an origin of coordinates. It reminds me of how much of the unknown world there is to explore. Don't you remember how you got the tattoo? No. Uh, how can you just decide to forget important pieces of information? That's just one of my many talents. The secret is to stop thinking about the things you want to forget, and the main thing is to not remember anything you don't need, to filter it, to get the right essence. I'll teach you someday, unless I forget. Do you remember your parents? Your past? All of that's irrelevant on the grand scale of world history. I need to remember no such things. Uh, you can say, I admire your capabilities of your memory. Forgetting your origin, knowing nothing about who you are and where you came from, that's terrible. Or forgive me for saying this, but you're out of your mind. She's just gonna blink again. She stays silent, gives you a puzzled look. What? What were we talking about? What is this encyclopedia you're working on? The Encyclopedia Galerianica will be published in 100 volumes, 1,000 pages each, plus the author's addenda, appendices, added by future co-authors, and critical commentaries. Addendia indexation is still in question. She looks slightly embarrassed. I just like the number 100, but I'm not sure that I'll be able to keep within the established word limit. It will be a magical piece of scholarship that will become a part of the mandatory curriculum. Wow. Every educational institution worth mentioning. In it, I intend to describe every object, item, event, fact, and personality that is present on or at least somehow related to Galarian. My calculations show that I have completed no more than 1% of this monumental book. Alright, thanks. She produces a crumpled up piece of paper from her sleeves and takes some notes on it. This conversation lasted approximately 5 minutes. She lifted her chin. By the way, did you know that this is the exact same amount of time that the Inquisitor of Canabras need to find a defendant guilty? But to shake off Inquisitors chasing you takes 5 times as long. That experiment proves that the running while clad in heavy armor is not burdensome for them at all. She's a lot. So you can imagine why I don't take her anywhere. We'll talk to Camellia. I think, yeah, we just have this about, when we went to her house. So, greetings. The neat smile on Camellia's lip disappears so quickly you almost wonder if you imagined it. So, you're Horgus's daughter. You've discovered my most terrible secret. Father cares so much about the Gwyrm name that he raised me in our mansion, hiding me from the world. I'll always be grateful to my father for everything he's done for me, even if Mendev society disapproves of some of his decisions. Would it be insolent of me to beg for your discretion regarding what you know about us? Camellia's words are polite, but her tone grows cold and sharp. Let us keep this as our little secret, I assure you. My father and I appreciate loyalty and decency. For both myself and my father, I thank you for your understanding. And then the other thing we can say is I found a number of interesting implements and accessories in the Gwyrm's mansion. How kind of you to share that you've gone through the Gwyrm's dirty laundry and drawn some bizarre conclusions. If you value my company, please refrain from making such insinuations in the future. She really just doesn't. Nenio never shuts up, and Camellia won't say a word. You gotta talk to Daeran. I don't even know if I don't think we've talked to him much yet. Let's talk to Ember first. The elf in front of you is young, still an adolescent by the standards of their long-lived folk. A childish, carefree smile plays on her face, and her wandering eyes linger on you for just a moment before darting off again into the distance. Terrible scars cover her body, and a few of her fingers are missing. A crow sits on her shoulder, observing you with its clever black eyes. Tell me about yourself. Well, they call me Ember. I used to live in the River City, and now I walk with you. That's my story. Why do they call you Ember? I've had many names. When I was little, Mom and Dad called me Dove, or Cricket, or Kitten. Dad called me his ray of sunshine, and when my mom was cross, she called me by a long name, a grown-up one. I can't remember it no matter how hard I try. Then, when I came to live in the River City, the good people called me different funny names, like Ember, or Torch, or Smoky. I don't know why. They called me Birdbrain because I have a crow. They called me Lucky 7 because of my fingers. She raises her hands. The middle finger on her right hand and the 2 smaller fingers on her left are missing. They sometimes call me Grilled Meat and said I was stupid, but I didn't feel hurt. I mean, they're right. I really am silly. They didn't mean to hurt me. But I like Ember. It's a good word. Embers are like people. On the outside, they're gray and cold like stones, but they're warm inside. You can blow on them and they'll start a fire to help you survive a cold night. And that's wonderful, isn't it? Ember it is. Where are you from? Far away, from the flower country. The girl gestures vaguely off into the distance. It's so beautiful there. Everywhere there's flowers blooming, golden towers, and waterfalls, and everyone is like me with pointy ears. There's no round-eared people, no short ones, no horned heads. We lived there together, me and Mom and Dad. Mom and Dad argued a lot. Dad used to say that all the good people should go on the crusade and fight the demons, and Mom said he was silly because it was so far away and none of our business, and that he shouldn't abandon his child. She meant me. But he didn't abandon me. He took me along. He said I was born the same year that the hole in the demon world opened. He said it was a sign that I could be one of the heroes who would close it. Of course, I'm not a hero, but I'm here anyways, helping as much as I can. Where'd you get your scars? It happened by accident. My dad and I came sailing down the river to join the crusade. Dad said that all the good people were going to the whirlwind to heal it. He said that the crusaders were the best people in the world, and together we were going to win. But when we arrived at the river city, the crusaders got mixed up. They thought my dad and I were bad and decided to burn us at the stake. Dad died, and I cried so loudly that one good knight realized it was all a big mistake. He started yelling at the other crusaders, even the one in charge, and then walked right into the fire and got me out. The others wanted to stop him, but he took out his sword and scared them away. The kind knight took me to a healer. I later learned that while the knight was pulling me from the flames, he himself was burned so badly that he died not long after, but I'm still alive. A few fingers missing, and my skin is funny. I've lived in the river city ever since. I've never had my own house, but I've had many friends, and then the demons came. I met you, and you know what happened after that. So yeah, Hallrune, if you remember from when we talked to him, was the one who, ordered her to be put at the stake with her dad, which makes sense because he's crazy and an asshole. But I was being brave and didn't kill him this time. So we can do a good, lawful, chaotic, or evil option. So good, is it really so easy for you to forgive them? I'm not sure I could be so merciful. Lawful, and that lynch mob called themselves crusaders, for shame. Chaotic, they must have thought they were doing something lawful and just. That's what happens when people let the law do their thinking for them instead of their conscience. Evil, I've heard enough of your sob stories. I don't care about you or your dead father, or just you've suffered through so much. We're gonna do the chaotic option. No, you see, the reason they were afraid of us. We were their friends, and there were lots of them, and just the two of us, and they had weapons, but they still looked at my dad and me like we were going to bite their heads off. Even when we were already on fire, even when that good knight was carrying me away in his arms, they looked at us with terror. I don't think fear ever has any reason to it. It just lives inside people and makes them do evil. Do you worship any deity? The girl shakes her head with an unwavering smile. Dad taught me to pray to Iomade. He said she was a kind goddess, and she called people to the crusade to fight against evil. The knight who burned my dad and me worshipped her too. They even lit the fire with a prayer to her, and she did nothing to help us. But then one kind knight alone, without any gods, changed his mind and saved me. I think the gods are the same as us. They don't understand anything, and they're scared of everything, so they hurt themselves and the rest of us. People worship the gods only because they're afraid of being responsible for themselves, and the gods listen to their praise, because they become smug and arrogant and begin to believe that they're better than us. But they're no better. They're just silly sinners just like the rest of us. Sometimes I pray to the gods, different ones, the good ones, the bad ones. I ask them to stop fighting and hurting each other. I don't know if they ever hear me, but if they do, the knight who wanted to burn me, he was able to change his mind and do a good deed. If he can change, maybe Baphomet can too. How did you survive on the streets? She shrugs. There are many good people in the river city. When I sang for them in the streets, they'd give me coin or bread and sometimes clothes. I shared everything with the other homeless, and they showed me where it's safe to sleep, where I could get out of the rain or cold, where I could find my discarded things. When the demons destroyed the river city, I looked for my friends, but I found no one. They probably all died. The homeless have no supplies or weapons or basements to hide in, and the knights won't protect them either. Knights are like gods, self-important. They're saving the world after all. Why do they care about homeless people? She smiled. Still smiling, the girl shrugs. Where does your magic come from? These tricks, I have them from my grandma. She used to be my father's grandma, and before that, his father's. I've never seen her myself, but she's very clever and kind. When I lived on the street, sometimes she left food for me or a blanket in the winter. Sometimes I feel her stroke my hair as I fall asleep, but if I open my eyes, there's no one near. She also sent me Soot. She scratches the crow's beak, and the bird grumbles happily in response. She tells Soot how to do different kinds of tricks, and Soot teaches me. We succeeded at a lore religion check. It appears that Ember doesn't know who exactly gives her these powers, but you can guess from her words that her patron is Andaletta, a powerful archon, one of the Imperial Lords, also known as Grandmother Crow. We'll say thank you for your answers. And then, you're always so cheerful. How do you manage to remain so hopeful when we're surrounded by such horror? Hope? She tilts her head and continues with a smile. No, no, hope is a lie. What should we hope for? This world is in the hands of demons. The gods can't help, or they don't want to, or they forgot about us altogether. The people know they're about to be eaten by demons, but they still quarrel with each other and fight and steal. There's no hope, only us. We'll have to win without hope. It will be hard. The entire abyss is against us. We can only win by some miracle, which means we have to make one happen. What other choice do we have? We'll work a miracle and win because we have to. The elf smiles broadly and nods to herself. Okay, bye, Ember. I love Ember. She's so great. Let's go talk to Daeran, and then I think we mostly finished talking to the storyteller, but we probably have a few things to finish up with him. The Defender's Heart is a splendid choice for the Crusades outpost. The very sight of these walls brings back fond memories of drinks and revels. The drinks were really good, by the way. So what made you join my party after all? You mean instead of carousing far away from Canabras with a small army of mercenaries to protect me? I will get to that. You see, when you appeared at my door out of nowhere, awash with bravery and heroism, and started tossing demons around like ragdolls, I thought that your company might be more exciting than my usual crowd of sycophantic hangers-on. You seemed competent and mysterious at the same time, so I decided that a little demon hunting wouldn't hurt, especially with such an intriguing entourage. The party has been growing staler with every passing second anyway. Needless to say, I'm not here for long. I shall return to the capital, or even one of my country estates, as soon as we reclaim the city. Crusaders, bellowing commanders, row upon row of identical tents. This is not the life for me. But I will certainly remember you and our adventures together, for a week, or perhaps even longer than that. May I ask you a few personal questions? You can try. I've heard about the stories about the tragedy that befell your family. I hope you don't feel obliged to offer me your insincere condolences on this unfortunate occasion. My whole family, my entire noble line, they all died, and the demons are to blame. It's not that I actually loved any of my relatives, except for my mother, but what's gone is gone. The family crypts are full of corpses, all covered in dust and shadows of the past. That's just how my D&D character is. He's like, hey, I know we just met, but what's up? Kill your whole family, maybe? You do anything kind of fucked up? What do you cherish most in life? These questions are so random compared to everyone else's questions. Lann was all like, so what's it like living in a cave, freak? And Sela was like, so you're a knight, that's cool, I guess. And Daeran's like, what are your deepest desires and secrets and wishes? There are far too many things that I cherish to fit them into a single conversation. Believe it or not, I might be one of the most life-loving people you've ever known. He smiles, his eyes are gleaming with something different from his usual impudence and irony. There's a dreamy air about him all of a sudden. I rarely meet anyone who embraces the joys of living as enthusiastically as myself. There are so many exciting and beautiful things in the world. It should be illegal to waste your time on anything you don't enjoy. And I am not afraid to repeat that to anyone's face, should it be Discari and his demonic herd, or Iomade, the Lightbringer herself. Okay, what do you hate the most? The feeling of helplessness, the lack of control over my own life, Daeran replies without thinking. Then he adds with obvious sarcasm, and onion rings, of course. I'd murder the person who came up with these abominations. Interesting. You don't seem that keen on helping people, but your knowledge of healing is truly impressive. What's up with that? If you want to try out everything life has to offer, you also have to understand how to deal with the consequences. And I'm not talking about a simple hangover, mind you. Got into healing magic for crimes? Go to jail, sir. Do you have any good stories about your past exploits? I've got plenty, but I have to warn you that even the most outrageous debauchery sounds far less thrilling when we're not the ones doing the debauching. Still, since you asked, I suppose the worst mess I've ever gotten myself into was when I staged my own kidnapping. I was once in correspondence with one of the Riverlands nobles, the young Lord Lebeda, and he told me about his days as a hostage to a group of bandits. That made me wonder what it would be like, and I thought it might be fun to set up an experiment. I engineered my own kidnapping by a certain gang through a chain of intermediaries and hired actors. Those fellows took the job very seriously. They caught me by surprise, killed my 2 bodyguards, and tied me up. Of course, the whole thing seems preposterous now, but it seemed like an ingenious idea at the time. The employers had told the kidnappers that they were to keep me safe, sound, and another group of mercenaries in disguise was watching the spectacle from afar, ready to interfere in case anything went wrong. It turned out to be a terrible idea nonetheless. It wasn't the least bit fun or exciting. Sure, those bandits had been unable to torture or hurt me physically in any way, but they had plenty of other non-invasive methods of humiliation in their arsenal. Taking almost all your clothes off and splashing ice-cold water all over you, for example. Ugh, I can't even remember if I said anything truly offensive to provoke them. Even though I initially planned to let them go after the ransom, their overly emotional reaction made me change my mind. I told my mercenaries to hang them on the spot. I suppose the whole ordeal taught me a valuable lesson, which is that I am not built for hardships and trials. Bro. What the fuck? You just told a couple of your bodyguards died during the kidnapping. Does that mean 2 innocent people lost their lives so that you could have a bit of fun? Yes. He pales a little, but not out of shame. Oh, spare me. It irks me beyond all measure when I hear about the suffering of innocents. He looks away and continues in a flat, polite tone. Yes, the bodyguards died. Guarding nobles is a dangerous job. They were well aware of the risk. I don't really see a problem with that. Besides, they proved their incompetence. They would have stood no chance against real kidnappers. Okay. She's gonna probably say the good one. So your cruel jokes bring people nothing but misery. And? So that was a stupid story, and now I'll tell you a brilliant one. Prelate Hallrune had always strictly prohibited any public celebrations in Canabras, and he always picked on me for my lack of respect in the fallen and whatnot. His grumbling annoyed me so much that one day I drove 4 barges into the city harbor and set up a celebration on their deck. The ships on the river didn't fall under the prelate's jurisdiction, you see, so all he could do was snarl at me from the embankment. I for once did not forget the old boy. The main attraction of the festivities involved an Inquisitor of Iomade dancing and roasting beautiful witches on illusory bonfires, taking off his clothes with every new victim. The spectacle was so heated, in every sense of the word, that the prelate almost had a stroke. He gives you a mischievous smile. I still consider that one of my finest ideas of all time. Should the Crusaders ever succeed in their efforts against the Worldwound, I will do my utmost to get permission to hold grand public celebration, rivers of wine free of charge, an obligatory parade and carnival in the evening, a contest for the most provocative succubus costume with a hefty prize in gold, another contest where the participants will have to fish a sausage out of a wine jar blindfolded with their hands tied behind their back. That's doing too much. The wine will symbolize the blood of the dead heroes of the war, and the sausage, well, they'll find a heroic meaning for that as well. Over the years, the commemoration of the greatest victor of the light over darkness will turn into an ordinary holiday, a fine excuse to get sloshed and rut like animals in the streets. Do you enjoy being mean to everyone? Yes. And here I thought you were hurling insults at people purely by accident. He laughs, this time surprisingly soft. I like your way with words. But you expect me to say if I want to make a good impression, something along the lines of, I'm not mean, I'm just honest with myself and everyone else. That's what people use as an excuse when they want to keep up their, saccharine facade while saying whatever nasty little thoughts spring to mind. That's not what I do. I have no hidden agenda. I'm just as much of an insufferable prick as I seem to be. Some people are simply begging for a good dose of mockery, so who am I to deny them? I don't give a damn if anyone holds a grudge against me, which is why I won't try to avoid it. Okay. Thanks. I hope this conversation was the slightest bit amusing. It definitely was. I'd like to talk about life in Mendev and the Crusade. Ask, I'm all ears. So, what's your opinion on the Mendev today in general? It doesn't exist, he scowls. It's a frontier country that has attracted every utopian adventurer and fanatic from all over the world for far more than a century. It's a place where strangers outnumber the locals, especially in the cemeteries. The population of Mendev, for the most part, consists of humans and other races not exactly known for their longevity, so the current generation of Mendevians were born in the shadow of the Worldwound and raised by the Crusades. I might be the last person to complain about the decline of tradition and lack of character in our country, but I also happen to come from one of Mendev's most ancient lineages. Its history is bred deep in my bones. My tutors told me stories about my heritage, the galleries, libraries, and even the interiors of my manors I grew up in were filled to the brim with memories of events long past. There are many heroes of old Mendev among my glorious ancestors, or at the very least, patrons and contemporaries of such heroes. Does anyone actually remember them now? I don't think so. These days, Mendev has its own heroes in shining armor and with holy fire in their eyes. I remember how several streets that once celebrated my ancestors were renamed in honor of some crusaders who had died in a heroic fashion. None of the citizens remembered the old crossing festival that was eventually replaced by Armasi. These holidays even share the same date. Pretty much the only authentic thing about Mendev now is its endless war with the demons, and there is a point in bemoaning this state of affairs. What's gone is gone, but at least we are no longer some tiny, godforsaken northern kingdom, and that's something, isn't it? So you don't really like Crusaders, huh? Quite the opposite. When I think about how many devoted heroes are willing to protect this world against the demonic threat, I feel so inspired. Inspired to continue indulging my vices while they keep fighting to keep me safe. Imagine being someone like me, someone who has everything they can possibly desire: youth, beauty, wealth, an honest wish to live and enjoy living, but vanishingly few ways to put it all to any use. The fact that the word fun is not yet outlawed in Mendev must be due to some bureaucratic oversight. You can celebrate your victories solemnly, you can wet your whistle after challenging battle, but what about real fun, joys, pleasures? I can't remember a single evening at my court without someone chastising me for my banquet, my lovers, my mistresses, my luxuriant clothing, my everything. It would have been a lot easier to tolerate all these hypocrites if they took a break every once in a while. Instead, there was constant fuss about how I wasn't doing anything for the greater good and how I only brought shame to my royal cousin, because his queen is the cousin. What do you think of our enemies? You mean the demons themselves or their followers? The former deserve to be cleansed with heavenly fire from their unholy origin alone, and the latter for their idiocy. I don't understand why a sane person would submit themselves to Daskari or Kabiri. Alright, Lady Nocticula seems like a bearable enough mistress, yet there are so many other cultists. They've tried to recruit me twice already, and I'm not even that old. First, a very pretty tiefling girl tried to seduce me, and then came with promises of Lord Baphomet's endless boons. I wonder what exactly that old hornhead could offer me that I don't already have. You know what I've been thinking? Every shopkeep knows this trick. An enticing offer along the lines of 1 in every 100 buns from my bakery contains a silver coin, and of course a hired actress to make a memorable show of finding said coin in her sweet roll. And there you have it. Hundreds of gullible fools storm the shop hoping to win the prize for themselves. I think the infamous Arilu Vorlesh was such an actress for the Lords of the Abyss, a petty Sarkorian witch who became the uncrowned queen of the World Moon, waited upon hand and foot by demon lords, only instead of visiting a bakery, gullible fools rushed to join the cultists. We have an army of unbelievably powerful supernatural invaders from another dimension, hell-bent on destruction and domination, and what do these fools do? They serve them willingly as pawns and lackeys, hoping against hope that someday their masters will notice them. You won't believe how delighted I am to be so vain and self-absorbed. These sins protect me against demonic temptation better than any virtue. He's so funny. So that's all he's got for now. He's so dumb. How stupid. I do wish. Let me see. I'm not gonna mod it because the mods kept breaking the last time I played it, but I hate his stupid gold metal helmet hair situation. Like in his portrait, beautiful, lovely blonde hair. The model, not it. But the last time I modded it, it kept changing Sela, and it made Sela white. I don't know what was happening. It was only Sela. No matter how many times we uninstalled and reinstalled the mod, I don't remember what mod it was. I don't think it's even updated anymore. At this point, it was just like the one that lets you get free like customization for all the characters. So like you could use, for example, like human hair on an elf because otherwise they're race locked. Yeah, so that was broken. So if you're interested in modding it, probably don't use that one because Sela will break. And then she would also just go completely gray. So like she would be, first of all, just a different person, and then she'd be grayscale. It was weird. I think, oh, Woljif. I think we talked to Woljif all the way though. I don't think we need to, I don't think he's gonna have anything else. Yeah. Okay. So I think then it's probably just the storyteller. Might have a couple other things. Greetings, Fable. Have you brought me a new story? Do I have anything? Oh, I did have something that he could do. So the old elf carefully takes Yaniel's sword, Radiant. Powerful forces lie dormant in this sword. It used to belong to an incredibly bright and daring soul. The storyteller's hands touches Finian. What a peculiar weapon. I sense intelligence in it, but it seems dented. Ah, Grandpa Elf, watch where you're poking your fingers. It tickles. The storyteller fiddles with a fragment of a gold buckle, an old thing created long ago by divine will, but the power that gave birth to it is so lost in the darkness. However, the relic still lives on, though it has changed. I wonder what secrets it's hiding. Would you like to know? Bring me 5 vials of magic essence, and I will retrieve this object with its story. So we don't have that stuff. So we're not gonna do that right now because we don't really need to. Okay, so I couldn't remember what all we talked to him about last time. So I have some questions about our encounter in the Blackwing Library. Of course, I make no secret of why I came to the library. I was looking for something. Did you find what you were looking for? He shakes his head gloomily. Alas, no, but I found proof that the book I'm looking for is in Canabras, or at least part of it. So what were you doing there? I was looking for a very old thing. Rumor has it some ancient scroll or book page about the times of Earthfall is held in Canabras. According to legend, it describes the last days of the profound kingdom of Kionan, later abandoned by the elves after fleeing Galarian. I have a vague hope that the events described in it will shed some light on my past. I see. I want to know more about you. Let's see. The elf permits himself a faint smile. I'm not surprised. A strange, peculiar-looking elf with unusual powers who came from afar and calls himself the collector of stories. Surely such things usually spark some interest. I'll answer your questions. You look ancient, man. I thought elves didn't get old. It's a crazy thing to say, but we're gonna say it. The blind man straightens his bony back with dignity. As you can see, we do if we manage to live for many thousands of years. There may not be a single mortal in this world older than me. He sighs and continues with a sad smile. It's not about time. It's about the stories I keep inside. There is so much suffering and sadness in the world, and in my stories too. I've lived every one of them. I've drunk the bitter experience and accepted it in my heart. It's hard, the weight of all this suffering on my shoulders, but I wouldn't trade my burden for any others. Where are you from? Before, I would have said that I was a blacksmith from Kionan who lost his sight and then found his true calling in a new craft of a story collector, but I have lately begun to suspect that those words are no more than a lie. The old elf chuckles sadly. It's quite the irony. I never thought I'd have cause to complain about my memory. It holds the stories of the entire world, but I've noticed more and more alarming signs recently. I encounter ancient stories and see myself in them. I don't remember those events, but stories cannot lie. So it means that my memory is lying, and I intend to get to the bottom of it. I'm looking for proof that my visions are true, and for the reason why my past has been hidden from me. Where'd you get your strange powers? I always got along well with things. I used to be a blacksmith, that I know for sure. I always felt the essence of things, their spirit. For as long as I can remember, I have always been able to feel the traces of memories and feelings left on things by their former owners. I don't know where their gift comes from. Maybe, having taken my sight, the gods granted me another sense. How'd you come to the world wound? Searching for the truth about my real past has brought me here. I saw myself in other stories. In them, I was called the elf in the tower. Now I'm looking for this tower, my tower, everywhere. I've been to many places. I've visited islands and deserts, but I haven't found it. There are very few uncharted territories on my map. The world wound is one of them. How do you collect stories? The same way Court the Landerer collects his conquests. The way a healer has a personal cemetery of patients he failed to save. The way every person, including you, has a box of secret, most precious experiences deep down in their soul that no one is allowed to touch. The world is not made of things, or matter even. It's made of stories. They move from past to the future, piercing our world at the point of here and now. They give meaning to everything. They are the meaning, and everything else is only the setting required for stories to exist. There is nothing more real and alive than a story, and anything real and alive can die or be destroyed, distorted, forgotten, but as long as I carry these stories with me, they will not be lost. That's why I don't share my stories. By sharing one with you, I give you the right to tell it to others, to distort it and embellish it, and advertently or inadvertently. How can I be sure you will keep its original purity? Stories travel from one person to another. They change, become distorted, turn into tall tales. That's why I keep my stories to myself. I have no more questions. That's what you think. In fact, the world is full of amazing things, and you still have a lot of questions. They just haven't bubbled up to the surface yet, of your consciousness yet. I don't think we need to say this, but I will to clear it. So, like, why do we need to clean the wardstone? And he's like, the wardstone's gotta be destroyed. It's gonna be bad if the demons get it and can corrupt it. That was a lot of talking. So, let's see. We have this quest now to restore the golden buckle, so we need to get some things to give to the storyteller. 5 vials of magic essence. We need to visit the Houndheart's camp. We need to visit the Nameless Ruins with Nenio. I don't think we're going to do that for a while. I know for sure we're not going to finish like the culmination of this quest until like the very end of the game. I don't remember when we end up visiting the ruins, but don't expect an answer on that anytime soon, because it is truly one of the last things to do in the game. The Outcast, so now we're just waiting for Kalessa's schemes to be revealed. We did the Stay of Execution, so that was defending the Defender's Heart. So we completed that one. We have a common cause, so we've got these 3 groups of people to join for the attack on the Great Garrison. So the Knights of the Flaming Lance, the Thieflings, and the Clerics of Desna. So we need to discuss the Great Garrison attack plan with Erebeth still. And then we finished the Orgus quest to go take him back to his house. So I think, yeah, we pretty much covered everyone. I think in the next part we're gonna head back out into the field and finish exploring the things that we missed before the Defender's Heart was attacked. But pretty soon it's going to be the attack on the Great Garrison, and then we will be moving pretty soon into Act 2, I think. But, man, yeah. No combat this time. Very talking heavy part. But the last one was an hour and a half of straight combat, so it balances out. But thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next part.